From his house burning down to building a brand new business, we sit down with Phil Velayo, the man behind the camera, in front of the camera, to unpack all of it. You don't want to miss this one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Progressive Resistance Podcast. I am, of course, your host, and I'm glad you're here. This is a reminder that these episodes can be found on the Luke Krubeck YouTube channel. They can also be found, if you just want to listen to them, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places. A reminder to like, subscribe, share, and help us get the messages that we're pushing forward on this podcast, especially the one of Build the Better You, out to the masses. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This is a little bit of a repeat on a guest that I've had in the past. I don't remember what episode it was, but I would say the man behind the camera, we're putting him in front of the camera again today. So sitting down and visiting with my friend, Phil Velayo, and we're gonna get into some things. He's had a lot going on in his life, and I'm excited to unpack them a little bit with him and kind of maybe A/B a conversation we had a while back and just see maybe what other shifts he's had in his life since then. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I have no doubt that there will be some growth in there for myself, for him, and everyone that listens or views this. So enough of that. Phil, let's get into it. Welcome to the show again.
Yeah.
What's the preference, being behind the camera or in front of the camera?
I'm usually in front of both, or I'm usually doing both, but
Right.
I think for this context, just talking about personal development in entrepreneurship is a little different. So I think there's a little hesitation with regard to like feeling a little bit of an imposter syndrome, right? Because a lot of times people in my community know kind of who I am and stuff like that. The guy that shoots precision rifles, the guy with the man bun and stuff like that. So being able to talk with you about the personal development and entrepreneurial stuff and some of the stuff behind the scenes as I listen to your guests, you're a really great host. You really know how to ask the questions that pull emotions out of your guests that really instill this kind of like atmosphere with your podcast that I think is very interesting that the whole world could benefit from, you know what I mean? In terms of just like really, as you say, build a better you and like, hey, what are the things that we need to take accountability for our life and be like, hey, this is right. This is the version of me before, but this is who I want to become in the future. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love that.
Long-winded, but it's good to be in front of the camera in this kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those words, man. I appreciate you willing to do this. And you had leading into the episode that we recorded last week that I just did alone. You had mentioned, hey, maybe there's a conversation for you and I have again. And I'd literally been thinking the same thing the day before. In fact, I even said to my wife, I was like, Phil and I need to sit down again because he's had so much kind of transpire in his life since we visited last. Yeah. And I have the unique opportunity of, working with you, being your friend, and seeing some of that from a little bit more of the outside looking in, but in relatively close proximity. Yeah. And I was looking at it, and I think that there's enough to unpack there that I think there's some value there for our listeners, for our viewers. And that's the hope with all of this, to your point, is share a message that's applicable to them in their own journey, in their own life, no matter where they're at. Yeah. So, today as we unpack some things maybe on the entrepreneurial side, owning your business, whatever else we get into, hopefully there's a chance for people to take this and be like, cool, how does that apply to me? For sure. Because as you're talking about your journey with what you do in the long range precision shooting world, like, okay, but how does that apply to me? And then there's probably a way. Yeah. So yeah, that's the hope, man, is that people find this and they ultimately find value in it. And I can't speak for you or any of my other guests, but the amount of growth that I get from just rehearsing these ideas, like I mentioned last week in the episode, which was, it's just getting reps for me. It keeps it familiar and it keeps it integrated. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to do this. And yeah, man, 23 episodes. It feels like we kind of just started it yesterday. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think when we first started, of course, the studio we were using was in your basement at the time. Yeah. And I think we went in and I ripped the first 3 podcasts just kind of off the cuff.
Yeah.
No notes, no nothing. And which has kind of been my MO in life sometimes is just kind of like by the seat of my pants and just rip. And not to do a Family Guy cutaway too hard here, but it reminds so I've done a lot of radio work.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the first times I went in to record some radio ads at the station, I was in the car business at the time, and so I was recording the majority of the ads that we did for the dealership. And the radio rep would just come to the dealership, and she had a little like mobile recorder, and so she'd sit at my desk, and I would just cut the ads there, right? Well, she was out of town or something, so I had to go over to the station. So I roll up in there, and they take me back to the little studio with the guy, and he's like, "All right, where's your script?" And I go, "Well, I don't have one." He goes, "Well, you have to have a script." And I go, "Well, I don't use them. I don't have a script." He's like, "Well, you have to have a script." I was like, "I tell you what, why don't you push the red button and let's see what happens." So I ripped like 3 30-second ads, like at the perfect time. I left him at like 27 seconds, so there was time for the jingle at the end, and I one-took all of them. And he goes, "Huh, that's pretty good." So I just gotten used to just like off the cuff thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I keep notes to kind of keep me guided and keep me on the path, and so we don't go too far into the matrix. But no, man, this has been a cool opportunity for me, and I appreciate you being part of it on the backside, and I appreciate you being willing to visit with me today.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
All right, man, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So since our last episode, dude, lots has happened in your life.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's how I want to start with things. And I know there's more than this, but I've chosen essentially 3 of them, and I want to talk about them, and then I kind of want to unpack them a little bit, and just kind of see what's there as far as what you're feeling and the growth that was there, things that were learned, and any of that. So the first thing, dude, and I would say is the most important, dude, you had a son.
I did.
Since we spoke last.
Yeah,
So you added to the family, and you have a son. So he's how old now?
He is 15 months.
15 months.
Yeah.
So, dude, let's get into that, dude. You had another child. You've got a son now. Just walk me through what that's been like for you.
Yeah.
Where you're at with it now. The good, the bad, the ugly, dude. Let's hear it all.
Dude, it's interesting when you had Jake on and you asked the question, and he took a pause and just started breaking down. And I just felt that right here, right now, when you asked me that, because I was not expecting that. But I really appreciate you asking that question first. But Mauricio Wolf Velayo was born January 1st, 2025. And he's been awesome. It's my second chance at fatherhood. When I had Zoe, I was 20 years old. I was in Iraq, and leading up to Iraq, being 19 years old and just trying to like put myself back then of like, oh, we're going to war, we're gonna go kill people and all these things, and like the reality of like me becoming a father hadn't really hit me, and I was super immature, but I knew growing up that I wanted a family. I had a huge family in Alaska. Like traditions of Christmas and stuff like that. And I had really great parents, and I knew that I wanted to build a family of my own. But when I found out that we were going to have Zoe, I knew I was at a point in my life that I definitely was not ready to be a father. And I had Zoe March 5th of 2009, and essentially for the next 10 years of her life, I selfishly pursued my, craft of being a sniper in the Marine Corps and elevating my overall kind of like journey through the Marine Corps. As a result, that fractured my relationship with Zoe through those years, because we'd have, our honeymoon phases where I'd go home and stuff like that. But anyways, I know I've kind of diverted there, but it kind of puts context for having a Mauricio now. And it gives me a second chance of like being able to relive the things that I missed with Zoe, especially the first couple of months. And Zoe's been great with him. She essentially would ask, "Hey, do you remember these things about me?" And there was a couple times I didn't, because I wasn't around, and it was like, I mean, it was a pretty low blow, right, to my soul when those situations would encounter, and then. But there's definitely some times where like I would remember, especially her early stages, and it's like, okay, I remember you doing this and stuff like that. But I did miss the big things. I missed her first steps. I missed her first words, right? And being able to have that now with Mauricio, or Ari for short, has been great. And the beautiful thing is that since 2019, when I got Zoe full time, I was able to kind of essentially repair our relationship. And now with her being a big sister, like I just feel like my kids have just really allowed me to become the best version of myself that I can be for them. And really my partner, Claire, I mean, she has helped me like see that like there's more to this life than just grinding your ass off with, for what, right? To make all this money to retire, to, live this life. And then you realize in the aftermath of doing that for some people that like you're lonely, and thankfully because of Claire, she's helped me see, and it's a balance. And we talked about this last week of the question is like, you could be a good father and you could be a good entrepreneur, but you can't be them at the same time. At least that's what I heard, right? And I'm sure we'll unpack that. But yeah, very long-winded again. But
no, man,
it was a great question.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And you talking about the the fork in the road that you're brought to when you're experiencing these things with your new son.
Yeah.
And then, your daughter's asking these hard questions. Well, she doesn't probably know they're hard, but she's like, hey, do you remember those things? And it's a reminder for you of maybe the way things went and wishing that maybe they would have gone differently. And so it's this weird, really intense double-edged sword where like you have the opportunity to have this joy and experience these things, but it's a reminder of the things that you wish would have gone differently and that you maybe would have taken more control of.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect example, dude. I think this happens so much in life, like all the time, where a singular moment can be, I guess let me back up. Two things can be true at once. And a singular moment can both be fulfilling and give you gratitude and joy, and can also sting. And I think that's, not to speak for you, but that's what I'm hearing from you is those moments are that way. It's like, man, I wish I would have done things a little different. I wish that things hadn't gone that way, but they did. Yeah. There's nothing we can do to change that. And so you obviously that impacts how you want to go through things with your son. Yeah. In comparison, but it's a challenge and it's a tough thing. And I've had those things in my life too, where something really rad is happening, but then it's also a reminder of something very painful for me. And both things are true in that scenario. And I think it's important to have acceptance of both, sit with both, experience both, and let them both live maybe equally or how they need to for you. Yeah. Because my guilty and toxic trait is I will let the reminder of it should have gone so differently, or you really fucked up there, will overpower and push into the corner the feeling of joy and gratitude, and that doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the people around me either. And so I've been working to just get better at letting both things be true, and just experiencing both without unnecessarily letting it like tear me down. Learning from it, being objective about it, but like experiencing both and sitting with both. Yeah, because both can be true
for sure.
For
sure.
And so that just, as you were talking about that was just resonating with me. And I've known you long enough and well enough to know that I kind of knew that was coming. I knew that was probably something that you've been experiencing through this journey. But then it's like but then there's a weird consolation prize or something where the fact that she's able to be part of it too, as this big sister and play a role and experience those things, it can almost be the thing that helps mend, and it doesn't change the past, and it doesn't necessarily fix things, but you know what I mean? It's like something about it makes it okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So with her, have you been able to experience or get a feel on, has she been A-okay the whole time? Did Zoe ever have moments with like, where you felt like maybe there was a touch of resentment or jealousy, or has she been pretty stalwart through the whole thing?
The only time was when we announced, or when we told her that we were having Ari, when we essentially broke the news to her that we were that Claire was pregnant. We went to the thrift store. She loves thrift shopping, and we tried to buy, without her knowing, like a little onesie, and put it in her like bag of the stuff that she was buying. And so we got home, and as she just unpacked, she was like, "Why do you have this onesie here?" And that was our. And come to find out, she already knew, because she's like, "Guys, I take your trash out. I saw the pregnancy test," and she kind of shut down then that day, like in terms of just like not really knowing how to process. But after that, oh God, she was like great. Like I remember just having the conversations leading up to Ari coming, like how he's gonna be like. Is he gonna look like me? Is he gonna look like us? If he looked at Zoe, he's always a split image of me, and joking around. But God, every time, now that she comes home, like that's the first person that she greets is her little brother, and he lights up when he sees her. It's great, and I think there has been enough distance that there's about a 16-year age gap between Zoe and Ari. So obviously enough distance, and from the time that I got her in 2019 to having Ari in 2025, I think that those 6 years, although it doesn't make up for the first 10 years of her life, right? I think with us just navigating life together alone, kind of allowed us to like have our time, right? Granted, I definitely think, looking at even my childhood of like, at 18 years old when I joined the Marine Corps, my parents had split, and I didn't have them, right? And you think that like this journey of life is like when you turn 18, that you don't need your parents anymore, right? And I've come to find out that is absolutely not true. Like I wish I would have had my parents more intentional in my life, in that like transitional phase of like when my emotions were really running off course, and really that's where I kind of like pivoted me to join the Marine Corps, and kind of learn through that hardship with fellow, brothers of mine that I love and respect. But if you peel back those layers, right, especially with, veterans and stuff like that, like when they join the service for the wrong reason, I mean, it becomes a nightmare for them when they actually get out.
Right. Yeah, because it maybe inappropriately becomes identity, right?
1000%.
It makes that transition back into like, who am I really outside of this?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't care if it's military or anything, I think everyone at some point has to go through their little identity crisis of, who am I in relation to this craft that I've chosen?
You talked about it in the last podcast, right?
Yeah.
The high school quarterback.
Yeah, dude. Like where did you peak? Right? Where did you peak? And hopefully you don't peak.
Yeah.
Truly. Hopefully it's a steady state of growth throughout this life, at any age. I've seen that in a little bit of a trend in working with an older demographic in the gym and in the physical therapy clinic, even with my parents sometimes. There's a certain resistance to change because, well, I'm this old and, old dog, new tricks or whatever. I don't know, or just the tenacity to want to change or to care, or I don't know, feeling tired. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, if, you say that person is in their 70s, but if based on their lineage before them, track record shows, hey, dad and grandpa both lived to their 90s. Okay, so you've got 20 years left.
Yeah.
So you're just going to hang it up. You're just going to hang up the possibility for progress and becoming a better version of self. And I guess that's just something that I hope doesn't happen to me. I hope I don't ever look back and be like, yeah, that was my peak. You know what I mean? Like there'll be, like, you're going to have a point where you're going to look back in life and be like, yeah, that was my peak physical.
Yeah.
Because then, Father Time did its thing. But even, you know what I mean? But but progress on the inside as a person and how we function and just your general personal development. Hopefully that's not something that goes away or slows down.
For sure.
Well, dude, yeah, congrats on having a son and adding to the family, and appreciate you willing to kind of go into that and unpack it a little bit. And I'm sure it'll come up again with some of our other discussions, but that's awesome, man. So the other thing that happened on this list of 3 that I've chosen is you made a little career shift.
Yeah.
You didn't change genres. You didn't change the craft per se, but you did change how you were doing it. And so I'd like to go into that a little bit, because I'm certain that we're going to have listeners that have done a similar thing, or maybe have made a complete shift. I'm thinking of a couple friends of mine recently that, have bought a business that they never really had their hands in. And so they're learning something brand new. It's different than what they've done, but there's obviously a lot of parallels no matter what business you're in. And we'll get to that today too. But take me a little bit through the change that you made from modern day sniper to where you're at now. And if you're willing to share, some of the why and why you made why you decided that this shift was right for you, and just kind of what that journey's been like for you.
Yeah. Great question. So I initially, wanted to shift, mainly as I got into videography. I realized this was not a passion project, but I was getting more and more involved into it. Right. Working with you as one of my clients here. And it was one of those things that I was like, oh, this is finally a way to break out of the industry that I'm in terms of having my hobby and my work be the same thing, right? Because no matter what, when I went shooting or whatever, I had this target on my back of oh, this guy's an instructor, this guy's a former sniper, whatever, all these things. And if I didn't place well, right, they'd be like, oh, I beat Phil or whatever, right? And on the reverse side, if I did do well, it'd be like, oh, he does this for a living, of course he should do well, right? So it was never a win-win, and I wanted to, not only that, but becoming an instructor and I wouldn't say a successful one, but to do it right and to make the money, especially if you don't own your own range, in order to, make ends meet, it requires a lot of travel, right? It helps. What that does is it helps, you to be able to go closer to your audience, to be able to run classes or whatever the case might be, so that they're not fronting, let's say $2,000 worth of travel charge for a $1,000 tuition to come to Cody, Wyoming to train with me for 2 days, right? So that got super taxing, especially with Zoe. I was missing basketball games and stuff like that on the road for 2 weeks, and
So just to be clear for the listeners, this is we're talking about before you made the shift.
Yeah, this is before I made my shift. This is
And so that conflict was the fact that you now had your daughter, and so you're trying to rebuild this relationship at the same time.
Yeah.
So easy to see how that was kind of like a bottleneck or a pain point. With the travel, right?
Yep. And then eventually, essentially, because I wanted to take a step back from my role of traveling, I made some comments that I needed to essentially, I made some comments that I needed to take a step back with my role, right? Even if, it meant, changing the way that our business model looked or whatever the case might be. One of the partners didn't agree with that, because that's not how our business model worked, right? And people wanted to sign up to train with me and my other partner, right? That was kind of the business model. But I was like, you know what? Like, I already experienced sacrifice with my time with Zoe, and I'm not willing to continue to do that. And I want to be able to do it on my terms, right, and not somebody else's.
Yeah, you had an opportunity to repeat what you did
Yep.
when you were enrolled in the military.
Yeah.
Do it again with this business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right. Because it's like, okay, well, I could crush this business, right? But at the wake of what?
At what cost?
Exactly. Right. And it's like, not doing this again. And so, yeah, I decided to make a pivot and leave that company. And you know, I took about 4 to 6 months off from that industry, focusing really on my videography work, which did great. I enjoyed it, you know, especially maintaining my relationships with my partners in the industry as a sponsored shooter and stuff like that. Like, I was able to kind of bring their vision to life through, you know, the video stuff that I do, and just understanding our world of like, okay, hey, how do I bring precision rifle shooting to, you know, modern marketing, essentially, right? Of like how to really like just like encapsulate the feeling that I get when I shoot at distance and teach.
Right.
Do that for 4 to 6 months. I realize that my passion is teaching other people, right? Like, I say this in all my classes, is like, hey, you know, at the end of the day, my passion is teaching. I just happen to teach my hobby, right? And I've always been like that, even in high school. Like, I always had like little mentorship groups and stuff like that, or what did they call them back in high school? Like study groups, you know. And I was always the one, especially with math, like leading that for people that and whatnot. And I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher in some capacity. That's why I actually went to get my bachelor's. Is like, when I get done teaching people how to shoot a precision rifle for a living, I'll end up at maybe Cody High School teaching Algebra 1, you know?
Sure.
Because a big part of the reason why I even graduated was my high school counselor. You know, just the way that she was able to kind of guide me through my, you know, teenage years, and like, hey, get your head out of your ass, go to school. Her name is Sheila Burns. I owe a lot to her. The reason why I even graduated, but I was like, you know, I'd love to pay it forward in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
For that kid, right, that thinks he's got it figured out, but he really doesn't.
Right. So you make the shift just so that you can kind of control a little bit more of your personal lifestyle.
For sure.
And prioritize family and things like that. Figure out your order of operation.
Yeah.
Much like I talk about with the flag that's hanging behind me.
Yeah.
Right? So how hard was that for you? Was it easy because you saw the bigger picture? I can't imagine that it was completely stress free.
No, it was difficult. It was probably one of the hardest decisions. It was probably as equal to getting out of the Marine Corps, because you know, when in the Marine Corps, you have so much good security, right? And being in the military is kind of easy in the sense that, like,
sure,
you show up on time,
right?
You do what you're told, as long as you're a good, you know, Marine or whatever.
You're taken care of.
You're taken care of, right? But I realized too in the Marine Corps is like, dude, I could be the best sergeant or E5 in the Marine Corps, but the shittiest E5 in the Marine Corps, him and I are getting paid the same.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right? And then fast forward to this you know, business that I was growing. I was like, you know, I put as much into that business as anyone else did on that team, and it showed based off of the brand that was built as a result of that, a brand that industry had not seen before. And I walked away and asked for absolutely nothing, because I knew that if I were going to do this, I'm just going to build it again, and I'm going to do it better.
Yep.
And I'm gonna truly do it 100%. Because when you're obviously in a business, there's compromise, right? With, like, you know, whether it's good or bad, because when you have multiple people, you know, you're able to get different trains of thought. But at the same time, I think what I was also realizing is that there was a lot of risks that I was willing to take that was not taken, you know? And I was like, you know, especially, it's funny, I was just talking, another rabbit hole. I was talking to a friend, and they were asking me if I listened to certain precision rifle podcasts. I was like, you know what? Honestly, I don't even listen to my own podcasts, but my podcasts that I mainly listen to are actually entrepreneurial marketing podcasts. And so I was on this road of like these marketing podcasts talking about how they built these businesses to 6-7 figures, and they were saying all the things that we weren't doing. And I was like, God, like this is what we should do and how we continue to disrupt our market, right? But it was too much of a risk for, you know, those other two, right? And so essentially, I felt like at that point I had no control of what I was building.
Sure. Yeah, you were able to see where you were leaking efficiency, but weren't able to make the changes that you feel like needed to be made.
For sure.
So you make the switch in order for have a little bit more control over family, lifestyle, things like that. The switch you made, it's the business that you're building, that you have built now, it's a similar model in that you provide education virtually, right?
Yep.
Through YouTube and other mediums that you use, right? Social media, and then you still do training, right?
Yep.
So how did you, in order to, for the reasons you left, to have that more control with your family, what was your play to make sure that you could still facilitate those things that you've been doing before that were important to you and that you enjoyed, like such as teaching?
For sure.
But still be home more the way you needed to for family? What was the difference?
Great question. So I would say the biggest difference is the fact that, number one, I'm able to find very like-minded. The first one was being able to find like-minded individuals that wanted to go down the same path that I went to when I exited the Marine Corps, which is becoming a professional long-range instructor full time, right? And that is, you know, there's obviously a lot of successful people that do that, own their ranges and whatnot. But what I wanted to do was build a brand that didn't have necessarily, you know, my face always attached to it, right? And I felt like I was tired of gatekeeping, right? I'm not a gatekeeper. I've never been a gatekeeper in terms of just like, you know, like the information that I share. It's like if I could data dump all of my years of experience behind a precision rifle in however long that you could take to soak it up, I will do that with you, you know, as long as you meet me with that same energy.
Yeah.
And I feel like in our community in general, there's always been gatekeeping in terms of just like, oh, we shouldn't share that, or we shouldn't disclose that because like now we're just feeding our competitors. It's like, you know, like at the end of the day, I looked at it as like, dude, if I'm already doing all these things ahead of my competitors, like the amount of work that they're going to take, or it's going to take for them to catch up based off what I've already been doing. Like, I don't care about what they do. Right.
Well, and they're not you.
Exactly.
So they could be spewing the same information, but they're not you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've run into that in my own entrepreneurial journey it's an interesting dynamic. You know, being an expert in the field, but then that's met with some imposter syndrome of well, am I the expert?
Yeah.
Like, and then sometimes it's like when you have something that you know, like you've got some information that's gold. Sometimes, there's like, well, if I let it all out there, then like whoever can take it and use it. And I fought that a little bit when I was building out the 8-week transformation challenge that we're about halfway through right now. Because I built this program that was accessible to anybody. They don't have to be a member of the gym, right? We've got people in Texas, Arizona, Utah, all over this area, Montana. Like we have over 100 people in it. And I was, you know, my brain was giving me all these really interesting ideas. I'm like, well, anyone could take that and then they could share it with whatever gym they are at, and someone could take that and use it and make it their own. I'm like, yep, they absolutely could. Yeah. But the difference, they're not me.
Yeah.
And they don't have Luke Krubeck on the weekly live Zoom calls dropping the heat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they have the information.
Yeah.
But with that information doesn't come like my 20 years in the trenches.
Experience.
Yeah, experience.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's the difference. It's like, yeah, you can have the information, but it's the delivery system and it's the mouthpiece that makes that difference. So no, I understand completely what
and
you're
it's the
saying.
storytelling. It's I mean, you look at this world of especially social media that we're in, right? And you're just seeing a lot of the same recycled garbage of AI or, you know, these hooks and these like, you know, wash, rinse, repeat systems of videos that go viral, right?
Right.
And one of the things that have stuck with me is that what I try to tell my team is like, you are one of one in this world, right? So talk about your experiences, talk about your hardships, right? Talk about the journey that it took to get to where you're at. Because you could ask AI like, hey, help me out with, you know, fill in 5 ideas this week for content, right? Yeah. And then you look at it and it's pretty decent, right?
Yeah.
But if there's no, is there no depth there in terms of just like, you know, like when I look at it and I'm like, okay, I can share a story of when this was a light bulb moment for me. Right. And ever since I've been able to do that with my content of like understanding that one of one, I feel like not only has my content been a lot better in terms of reach, but number 2, I feel more comfortable in my own skin, you know, in knowing that like, hey, whatever information is out there, I'm not reinventing the wheel. Yeah, I'm regurgitating it in my own interpretation of how I see it, right? And also as a teacher, what has worked for hundreds of students that I've touched. And you know, a creator said it is absorption, and it's like when I say something and I try to look at the audience. If I have a class of 12, let's say a class of 10. My goal is when I say something about a specific concept is to get a 100% absorption rate. Like, okay, hey, every 10 of you guys understood that. And let's say if I say something, especially, you know, I say it and like I look at the crowd and I'm like, okay, only about 5, 6 of you guys got that. Let me try a different angle, right? So I'll say it again, and then, you know, 2 more light bulbs pop up. Okay, I got 7, 8 now, right? And I'll say it one more time to see if I can get 9. And when I say it that third time, and I see all 9 of them, and then not only that, reaffirmation that the other 6 or 7 are still tracking. Now I'm using that as like, hey, this is how I'm gonna always approach this, right? This is how I'm gonna say it first, because this is my 100% absorption rate.
1000%.
Right?
Yeah, dude, there's so much value in what you just said, and I hope the people that are listening to this that do any sort of form of teaching or education, I hope they heard that. Because for starters, to your point, you need to be able to meet people where you're at. And I talk about that a lot in the fitness realm. We have to meet people where they're at. And in order to do that, you need to have about 5 different ways to cue one thing. Yeah. Because the first 4 might miss with that person. Yeah. You know, so I always talk about like when you're cueing, taking slack out of the system prior to a deadlift, you need to be able to have your like 5 go-tos. Yeah. Because might only be one of them that works. And maybe the first one works. And you'll start to get the theme of like, this one seems to work with about 90% of people. Yeah. And then I've got these extra ones in the hopper just in case. Yeah. But learning how to do that. And then when it comes to cueing, learning how to do it in an efficient way where you can cue less. And I tell my trainers and people that I work with, I go, you need to find the cue that fixes 3 other things, upstream or downstream. Yeah. And if you can find those, it makes you more efficient. And I think what you'll see in people that are early in their teaching careers, they over cue everything.
100%. And I'm guilty of that too, right?
Sure. We've all been there.
Yeah. 100%.
All of us have done it. Yeah. And I've said this a lot to people. And in fact, I said a couple of weeks ago to a client, I was like, man, if I could watch myself do a training a client, you know, like 15 years ago, dude, I would probably slap the shit out of myself. I'm like, dude, like, shut up. Yeah. Like, and because you get this email, like, I know so much, and I need to make sure that they know that I know so much. And it's funny, the longer that I've trained, the less I say and the less that I cue. For sure. And because also, just with time, under tension, you start to learn what really matters. Yeah. And like, with this person, meeting them where they're at, is it really important for me to cue that one
Mhm.
thing? Probably not, because if I cue this, that might fix it.
Mhm.
But this is the bigger thing that's going to help them
Yeah.
move the needle.
Yeah.
And so it's so important when we're
Yeah.
teaching and educating people is
Yeah.
like, you can't just give it all to them,
Mm-hmm.
because then they can't grab onto anything.
No.
So it's like, you got to find the cues. You got to have your like 5 ways to cue
Mhm.
the one thing,
Yeah.
and then find the cue that fixes 2 other things for you at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. I stole that. I stole the cues from you for even when you and I were doing a little bit of some collaboration content with regard to fitness, which I
Yeah.
think we should get back to because it's highly recommended.
Yeah.
But the cueing, right? Is something that I had never used in my just my workflow or process
Right.
of
Right.
teaching students how to certain points
Right.
to your point. And then another thing that I was thinking about is like when you overwhelm somebody with too much information, now you essentially ruin their experience because they start getting frustrated with themselves, right?
Yeah.
And they check out.
Uh-huh.
And then now you're trying to not only help somebody get through this, right,
Mhm.
through your cues, but like now have to emotionally like, hey, don't get frustrated with yourself. I get it. Like you're in a very spot that's maybe uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? And then just making sure that like whatever exchange that you're happening is positive, right? So that like they're gonna want to come back and see you again.
1000%. Yeah, it's like, because it's you have to help them build and help them like get those little wins.
Yeah.
In my time in physical therapy, we would get a lot of students coming through on their clinical rotations. And occasionally they'd be hanging out with me while I was treating patients, right? Or they'd be treating the patient, I'd be hanging out with them, kind of supervising, things like that. And I remember a conversation that I had with a student, and we were doing some deadlifting with the patient and a couple other movements. And we get done, I was like, all right, questions, comments, concerns? And they're like, yeah, you should have cued this, you should have cued that. Why didn't you do this? And it was a great opportunity to have a conversation. I'm like, this is not about perfection, it's about progress for this person.
Yeah.
I cued the things that matter most for their current symptoms and their current irritability. And there was a few things that, I would like to see a little bit different, but I know we're going to build on that. And so it's like learning how to choose your battles and again, just meet that person where they're at.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier that I wanted to circle back to that I think is important too, for anyone that's on an entrepreneurial journey or thinking about it, or thinking about going in on something that they want to do. Don't let a saturated market or the idea that people are already doing it and already saying it stop you from doing it.
Yeah.
I said this last week in the episode because it was just me, and I kind of rehearsed and went back to why am I doing this podcast?
Yeah.
And I shared the same thing. I'm like, nothing that I talk about, the ideas that I share are new. Absolutely none of them. But I'm presenting them with my spin and the way that it makes sense to me. And the way I say it might be the 100th time someone heard it, but it was said in a way that resonated with them and clicked.
Yep.
Don't let the oversaturation of a market stop you from doing what your heart is on fire for. Because fitness is like when I opened the barbell club, and this was even before we had an additional 2 gyms open since I've opened, people were like, don't you think we already have too many gyms? Don't you think it's a little oversaturated? And I was like, nah, fam. Like, because I knew what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to add an experience and specificity that wasn't being met.
Yeah.
And I was going to do it in a way that was just different enough.
Yeah.
And so it's just this encouragement to people. I'm like, do the thing.
Yeah.
Don't let that stop you just because it's oversaturated. Yeah. Like on one of the calls not too long ago in CCV with Rob, we were talking about this very thing. And it made me laugh because it was so true. Because like someone had asked a question about like, well, it's just kind of oversaturated. He's like, oversaturation?
Yeah.
He's like, let me tell you, he goes, let me tell you a market that's oversaturated. Water. He goes, have you seen what Liquid Death is doing? Like they've completely blown the water game up.
Yeah.
And it's all in just like marketing, packaging, and whatever else, right? Like you don't think the water department's a little oversaturated and there's still someone that was like, no, I can do this different. I can do this in a way that makes sense. For
sure.
So I was thinking about that, and I just hope that people realize that. And like, my music, right, is it, dude, no one's doing anything original musically.
Yeah.
There's only so many chords.
Yeah.
there's only so many, but like, and so I saw this really rad thing. It just proves what a monster he is musically. But Ed Sheeran, I think he got pulled in. It was like a court thing where it was like they were saying that he had like, there was a copyright issue with one of his songs and it was too close to something else or whatever. So he had a guitar, and I think it was in the courtroom. And so he's playing these like 3 chords, right? And on the same 3 chord progression, he sang like 15 songs that are like famous songs that are out there right now. To like make the point of like the melody line shifts a little bit.
Yeah.
The tempo shifts. You're a little bit longer on the A chord here than you were on that one. Like it's, you know, so you can take these things that are already done, but you can add just enough of your own personal spice that 1000% can make it your own.
You know, one of the things that I really appreciate about the Barbell Club is the fact that I'm able to at least get a chance to run into you. It's my sound where it's like all the other gyms that I've ever been to, never have I ever just seen like, oh, there's the owner of the Barbell Club or the 24-hour fitness or whatever, right? So like and maybe it's just me of just that experience of being able to be like, you know, shoot the shit with you for the day or whatever. And maybe it's because like I'm also on like this, you know, entrepreneurial path. So like I see you as like hey, I'd love to, you know, chat with him about maybe his journey or where he's at, right, or wherever. But just being able to see you at the gym, knowing that it's your gym, right, I think is a cool experience where I like you don't get that anywhere else when you're at this, you know, those like bigger kind of establishments.
No, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you noticing that because that's not by accident. Yeah. Like that was part of and we're going to talk about this today, we're going to talk about customer journey. Yeah. But that's part of the customer journey that I wanted to build. Yeah. Now here's the problem with it. And you talked about this just a minute ago when we were talking about this career shift you've been in, is you're like, I don't want to always have to be the face of this. Yep. So, you know, there's this conversation that you need to have with yourself when you're starting a business of what am I building? Yeah. Am I building a legacy company or am I building something that I'm going to eventually exit on? Yeah. And depending on when you're wanting to exit on something is going to change how much your face is forward on that. And as of right now, the model of the Barbell Club looks and feels like a legacy company because the Luke Krubeck brand is so connected to the Barbell Club brand. And so that's something that's on my radar, is that with time, in order for me to be able to have the freedom that I want, I need to make sure that the vibrations and the atmosphere that is kept with me being so available is how can I continue to feed that, but rolling back a little bit, but still making sure that like people know that I'm not gone, right? And it's something you have to titrate with a little bit because you can't just go from those many touch points to none. Yeah. Because then it's immediately lost. Yeah. But no, that was something that was important to me. Yeah. Not just that the owner was there and available, but the owner was someone who eats and breathes that. Yep. And that can field those questions. Yeah. That, you know, and one of the things I'm so grateful for, and I can't take all the credit for that I did it intentionally, but all the different fields that I worked in my path towards physical therapy and all those things, how much all of those have served me on being able to be such a kind of a useful, diverse, you know, tool of diversity to so many different populations of people and demographics of people, whether it's the therapeutic side, whether it's the bodybuilding side, whether it's the powerlifting side, whether it's, you know, being able to collaborate with you and like, hey, here's things you guys need to consider. Like, I'm not a long range shooter, but the way I understand the body, here's what the run-ins you're going to have with these positions, right? Like, and I'm so grateful that I have that wide range, because the net that I need to cast in a community like I live in, it has to be bigger and wider than it would have to be if I was in a city of 400,000 people. Yeah. You've got an opportunity, depending on the volume, to get really specific on your niche. But for me, I wanted strength training's the niche, right? It's like strength training is the entry point, no matter what your goals are. Whether you're in there to improve your long range shooting, or you're in there because it makes hunting season easier, or because you need to because of a back issue, or because you want to change your physique and maybe you want to show it off on stage. Like, all of that is under one roof, and that's what excites me the most. Yeah. That's what I love most, is like on any average day, there will be a lady in a walker getting treated for her hip that she just had surgery on. There's a guy that's deadlifting over 500 pounds getting ready for his next meet, right next to a lady who's in one of our small semi-private groups just working on getting in shape and losing body fat, who used to cry every time she would come into the gym because she was so afraid that people would look at her. And now she walks in like she owns the place.
Yeah.
Right next to, it's just, I love that it can all be under that umbrella. And but me being there all the time was part of the original design. But it creates an interesting dynamic for me of when I look at my 5 to 10 year plan. But it's something I'm thinking about. And you kind of have to look forward, right? With business, like you gotta every once in a while I gotta step back and be like, okay, where this is pointed right now, is it pointed where it needs to be to match my 5 to 10 year plan? And I've gone through some really specific design process for Barbell Club 2.0 of what I would love the next location to be and look like. And Luke's still there all the time, but right now when you walk into the Barbell Club, the first room on your right, Luke's there. And a lot of times I'm in there because I'm working on steering the ship, right? Luke's still going to be there on version 2.0, but it's going to be upstairs. And you'll see me, I'll have glass windows on 2 of the 4 walls will be glass windows, so it'll be seen from the gym floor still. And people will know that I'm there, but it will give me an opportunity to step back just a little bit and hire the right people to be on the front lines, which is what you've done with this business. Like, all right, I'm finding the people that were where I was at for a while, where they're like, they want to travel. They're willing to travel. This lights them on fire. And that allows you to still facilitate those needs, but then for you to prioritize what matters to you is being home more than you're not. So like that's things that I'm already thinking about on like next location. Where's Luke's office? Still accessible. Still front of the house, but removed 5 degrees. Right. You know what I mean? To hopefully help facilitate that eventual, what does this look like? Is there an exit? Things like that.
I think it's one of the things that I'm realizing is your standard, right? And I've heard this through many entrepreneurs podcasts and stuff like that, of making sure that your standard doesn't change or sway, even though it will, right? But as long as you maintain that within yourself and you have the leadership capability to inspire that in others, I don't believe that your standard should suffer, right? Or you should, and again, I think this is said, is that, you should, change it as you bring people on board, right? I think it's definitely starts with culture, right? Of like how you set the stage, you know what I mean? But like for me, and this is like one of just our basic leadership principles that we had in the Marine Corps, and every single one of my cadre, we're all cut from the same cloth, as we say. Like, don't ask me to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. Right. And first and foremost, and number 2 is, our thing is like performance on demand, right? Like you will, everything that not only you're going to ask the student to do, you will do yourself, right? But you will do it with no hesitation, right? And to the best of your ability at that point. And if you fall short in that, then I would hope that as an instructor, you realize, hey, I need to lock it up, or I need to get my shit together and do the things that you're probably uncomfortable doing, of like, maybe going to competitions or whatever the case might be, right? And that's one of the things that is great about the team that I'm trying to build, is like, that is like the minimum requirement. Like when people reach out, they're like, hey, I'm like, I see what you're building. I want to jump on board. We've got a couple guys that have already asked that. And, me and my other 2 partners, we were like, okay, well, what have you done outside of what the normal Marine Corps had, asked of you? It's like, what type of civilian classes or whatever competitions. And going back to what you said as your experience, like a physical therapist, is like, and we say this all the time. I say this all the time with precision rifle shooting, with different avatars, right? Hunters, military law enforcement ciphers, competitive shooters. Everyone's desired end results, their desired effects downrange are different, right? So for the person in the gym, right, they want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. They want to get fucking cooked, right? They want to be a power lifter, right? Everyone's end results are different, but you have to be able to meet that person, like you said, where they're at, and be able to encourage them, like, hey, this is the route that I would take to get there, right? Because not only have you been there at some way, shape, or form, but you also have coached people to get to that point. And one of the things that has always stuck with me, with you, one of the stories that you shared with me, this has helped my fitness journey of maintaining consistency, is that it doesn't always, there's going to be phases of your fitness journey that doesn't look the same, where like you had mentioned a part of your life where like, dude, you only had like 45 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes to work out. Like 30, right? Yeah. You show up, warm up for 15 minutes, hit the squat rack, and then bounce.
Yep.
You know, and like I always had, there's tons of lapses or months that I didn't go to the gym,
right? Because
I always felt like the gym had to look like an hour to hour and a half of your day.
Otherwise, it wasn't worth it, right?
Exactly, right? And then, you know, excuses happened, and you start to fall off, and you know, next thing you know, you start spiraling out of control mentally, because like you're not happy with the way that you look, the way that you feel, right? And then that. You saying that to me, like really shifted like my thoughts on, you know, fitness, right? And then maintaining that lifestyle. So yeah, I think, you know, knowing that and sharing that with people, only again, Luke Krubeck can share that story, right? It goes back to that like one of one. Whereas like, you know, sure, the information is out there, but can you relate to somebody at that level where like, hey, dude, I only had 30 minutes to work out because I was going to school. We were just having a baby.
Here's all the things that we were doing.
Yeah, right. And like, no.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, I think from the fitness side, the thing that I try to get people to understand is like, you know, for me, you know, I've got on my forearm tattooed here this anchor, but it's this reminder of like, you got to find the things that anchor you in life.
Yeah.
Right. And fitness has been one of those things for me. And so, and sometimes during those times when it's completely chaotic, that's all it is. Yeah. It's just an anchor to keep you from being tossed about in this storm that you're weathering.
Yeah.
And so is in that moment, you know, the boat's anchored. Are we making progress? Are we going somewhere? Yeah. No. Yeah. But we're making sure that we stay put and we don't lose the ground that we have gained. Yeah. And in those there's moments like that where it's like, yeah, let it be an anchor in that zone. Yeah. Maybe it's not about progress that day. And when you find the moments of your fitness where it's truly just being an anchor. Yeah. That's where it's about your brain more than it's about your muscles, dude. Yeah. There's days it's about building muscle, and there's days it's about controlling your mind.
For sure.
And so just getting people to keep that in there and finding it as a non-negotiable, so that then when the waves and the storms calm a little bit, you can get back to the specificity and the time and having it look the way that you would prefer.
Yeah.
But rather than just like shelving it, you know, and then that, you know, that week turns into a month, turns into 3 months, turns into the shit, you know? Yeah. It just keeps us from hopefully digressing and keeps us focusing towards progress, knowing that sometimes you just got to throw the anchor down.
Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, it's just like sharing those experiences personally. It's like, hey man, I've been there.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I'm just really busy, so I can't make it to the gym. I'm like, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Of all the things we had going. Because like, I get it. I get it, you know?
But also the way that you say it and present it to your customers, your friends, right? Sure. Doesn't sound, you know, like unrealistic, right? Because like there's definitely guys. I mean, the military is one of them. The military guys are one of them. Like they say it in a way that just makes it super unrelatable. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big part of, I think, the entrepreneurial journey of finding customers that you can relate to, right? And having enough vulnerability, as you said in your last podcast, and knowing that it's not a negative, right? It's a positive of being able to like, hey, like, if I'm able to understand my weaknesses and even project them out loud to people that, you know, I might, right? The times that I've been vulnerable the most on my channel, I feel like I've reached more of my audience in terms of like them understanding that I'm just as normal as them, in terms of just like, hey, I put my pants on the same way that you do.
Yeah.
I put my shoes on, right? Because like people have this like specific, and Hollywood does this, right? People have this specific way of like what a sniper should look like,
Yeah.
or talk like, or whatever, right? Like these books that are out there,
Right.
and then they see this Asian dude with a man bun.
I was gonna say, and that's probably what drives so much of the weird hate towards your man bun,
You
right?
know?
Like among other things, and insecurities, right? There's, it's like, what are you really mad at?
For sure.
But yeah, I think just, you know, being willing to like be a little bit more like water
Mm-hmm.
in our own crafts and our life, dude, right? Like as Bruce Lee would put it, you know, it's important, and it helps us connect with people, and again, helps us meet people where they're at. But then within that, right, like you're going to have, like you said, we were talking about earlier, you're going to have your standards, and you're going to have your things that you kind of hang on to, and sometimes that standard will draw people in, and sometimes it will push people away.
Yeah.
And just because you have a standard established and you've got your core values, it doesn't mean that you're also 100% accurate with them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, you know, we're definitely deep into cancel culture right now, right? So like if anyone has any sort of misstep that's outside of the standard that they talk about, then it's like they're crucified, and it's like it's not, there's no grace at all. Yeah. And so that's an interesting study sometimes, where it's like, okay, I have these standards, but sometimes that's going to draw people in, and it also might be the reason why people maybe don't really identify with my brand or the atmosphere or things like that. And that's why I always try to lead with them, like the standards that I've set, the core values, the list of the 4 things behind me. You know, it's like, those are there as reminders for me. They're a target for me. And as a metaphor for long range shooting, like you don't always hit the target. Yeah. So you make adjustments.
That's right.
And you try to get back on target. Yeah. And so I just think, you know, we're so quick to be like, well, that doesn't completely align with, you know, and I'm like, yeah, like no one ever will. Yeah. And so it's like, you know, giving yourself enough grace and mercy without letting go of the extreme accountability, you know. And I've tried to create a space, the Barwell Club, that provides accountability. And it's funny because I've watched that push people away. And it's an interesting dance of where I try to like give people accountability and be like, hey man, like how are your lifts going? Yeah. Tell me about your goals. Like, what are you working towards? Like, we just going through, you know, and so like I'll ask people some hard questions and I'll corner them a little bit. And then sometimes I just gotta let people do their thing, but it's a little bit of a dance. But I had a guy cancel his membership. This has been a couple months now. I don't know if I told you this story, but it was and so I do an exit interview with everybody, right? So he had texted me to cancel, and I always call people because I like to talk. Yeah. And I'd be like, hey man, I got your text about wanting to cancel. I can process that for you. But may I ask why? And he goes, yeah. You know, if I'm being honest, and I was like, yeah, please. You know, because dude, if someone had a poor experience and I'm unaware of it, like I want to try to correct on that, right? Yeah. So I can make adjustments, right? And so I was like, yeah, please be honest. And he goes, you know, the people that go to your gym are just a little too ambitious for me. And I wasn't laughing at him, but it made me laugh, and I was like, what? Yeah. I was like my members are too ambitious? Yeah. Like, I was like, isn't that what you want? Like, don't you want to be in an energy where like people are like there to work? You know, it was odd to me. And I was like, and I said, what do you mean? Like they're in there working too hard, or they're like, or you feel like the gym's too busy, or he's like, I mean, yeah, like, I guess kind of both. It's like weird, man. Like, and I was like, okay, well, I hope where you're going has less ambitious people. For sure. And I was like, and I got the phone. I was like, that was so fucking weird. To me, because I'm like, what? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like for me, I'm like, isn't that what you want? Yeah. Like I work so hard to try to be in rooms for people that make me go, man, I'm being lazy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like I'm not trying hard enough. For sure. So it's just interesting to me. So this, apparently I've done that. I've created an atmosphere that hopefully levels people up or encourages other people to come in and work hard. but hopefully it's always in a space too that's welcoming.
Yeah.
A space that I'm like, I want you to be here, and like, you do you, but I'm here to help if I can. But it's been an interesting thing to kind of watch and go through.
Yeah. One of the things I know we'll talk about, accountability, is hard for people. It's one of the things I think is always constant refinement, especially depending where you're at. I know we'll circle back to the accountability, but I'm glad you brought that up. And second, customer journey experience. We always have for my business, when we get done with the class, we have these after action reports that I send out, and for the most part, like students, right, when they have a good experience, they'll write out, like, hey, this was, and most of the time, like, they'll just, at the end of the day or still in person, they'll just kind of just be on a high, but like, this was a great class, especially if their sample size is like, this is their first class, like, I appreciate it, but like, they don't really know until they go to other events and they realize like, okay, hey, like, I want my team to be the gold standard, right? And we will have a gold standard experience for you. But anyways, we send these after action reports and stuff like that, or debriefs, like, hey, give us one thing that we can improve on. Because to your point, like, I want to know if we missed the mark on something and how we can improve it, right? Because we're not always going to get it right, and that's why in the military we have debriefs, right? It's like not every mission goes according to plan, so we have debriefs so that we can, focus on, hey, what were our sustains and what are our improves? What can we go back to the drawing board when we're back in training to figure out, okay, hey, this is the areas that need improvement, so that in our case that we can improve on that customer experience in that journey. You know what I mean?
So let's just go there, and we'll hit the kind of third thing on my list of things that's happened in your life after that. But since we're already going there, there's no reason to deviate from it. So customer journey has been something that, from what I understand, you've spent a lot more time learning about and working on in your process of building out this business.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we ever listed the name. Like, what is the name of your new business?
Yeah. The name of the business is called the Cadre.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so that people can find that and know.
Yeah.
And for those of you that follow the YouTube channel, we'll make sure to put all the Cadre's YouTube and all their socials and stuff, so that people can find that if they're interested. Because I know we've got a handful of listeners that are kind of in the long range shooting space in some version. Yeah. So, but let's get into customer journey, because this is something that I also have a passion for. It's, I don't pretend to have it dialed, but it's something that I consider more than I ever have, especially in the last. I've had the Barwell Club open now for 6 years, but especially in the last like 3 to 4, it's something that I've really considered. And we mentioned it earlier in this conversation, but I hope that as people hear these conversations, is even though their business might be completely different from long range shooting training and completely different from owning a gym, are the things that we're talking about with our customer journeys, what's the application for them? And so that was a challenge that, Rob gave me in the mentorship group, which was like, look at every customer journey that you experience and take an inventory of it. Yeah. Like anything, like you go into a coffee shop you've never been into. What do I like about this place? How did I feel when I walk in? Everything from like every detail. Yeah. Like, what was it like in the what was the experience in the bathroom? They gave me my coffee. Was it smooth? Was it a smooth transition or an awkward one to go get to the extras? Yeah. To find the sugar or the stir or the stopper to put in the top of it. Like everything, get like granular with it. What's that customer journey? And then of those things that you liked or you didn't like, how would that apply or make sense in my scenario to the Barbell Club? For sure. Right. Why was that so cool? And how can I do a similar thing? Yeah. Right. And so I'm curious to kind of to hear your take on it. And am I right in that like customer journey has been something you've been diving into more the last couple of years?
Yeah, no, I would say more importantly, probably this year. And I don't know if you know if this is coming or not. So I'm glad we're talking about this. So at the very beginning of our contract for Indie Cloud, which is the video company that I'm running, which is the name of my 2 dogs. We had set the stage for, me managing your content in some way, shape, or form, right? Videos and stuff like that. And so it was probably maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, at the beginning of kind of getting ready to the new year. You were very sympathetic to the fact that I had a lot going on, right? Between losing my house, transition with the job, and stuff like that, and the accountability that you gave me not only as a customer but as a friend is like, hey man, my customer journey from when we first started to now is not the same. And when you told me that, I was like, holy shit, it's not. And why did that change? What are the things that are in my control, right? And so instead of it just goes back to kind of, instead of pointing the fingers and stuff like that, I was like, I had to take a look at myself and be like, shit, what went wrong? You know what I mean? And then not only that, when you did ask me that, it's like, okay, well, how can I fix this, right? How can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then now, how can I make sure that I even implement this into my own business so that it doesn't happen?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So number one, I really appreciate you having that hard conversation with me. I think at the beginning of the year, right? Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. I didn't know you were going. I hadn't thought about it recently.
Yeah.
So
so that's why I brought it up, is because I appreciate, as a friend and as a client per se,
sure,
right?
Sure.
That you held me accountable to what we initially agreed upon with what this looked like, right?
Sure.
And one of the things that is always tough in business with friends and stuff like that is obviously the exchange of monetary and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think we've been able to navigate that really well. But anyways, so the customer journey, right, of you having that conversation with me and why I feel like it is, like you said, it makes it unique to you. It makes it unique to your business, and being able to take certain things from different, even business models or industries, right? Of the fact that, like you said, hey, at the Barbell Club, they'll see, as if I'm in town, they'll see me that day, right? And for me, I want to get to a spot where I'm not traveling as much, right? But if I have a 2-week long course, or my guys have a 7-day stretch of a long course, I'd love to pop into that class.
You're gonna plug in a little bit,
right? Yep. And I know that they're maintaining that same rigid standard of instruction, right? But it's nice to be able to pop in, make sure the guys are doing well, and just be able to touch the customers and be like, hey, what's up, guys? You know what I mean? Because that is, right? At the end of the day, there's only one of us, each of us.
Well, and it helps them know that you're still involved.
Exactly.
I do the same thing with my trainer.
Yeah.
So people that are in our program, I meet with them every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The trainer sees them 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I do the check-in meetings.
Yeah.
So they still know that I'm still Captain's still here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sending you out to these people because I trust them, and I give my trainers a lot of autonomy.
Yeah.
But I still have check-in meetings, regular check-in meetings with my team too, so that we can make sure that, hey, we've got the big picture in mind, that we know that, hey, they know where I'm pointed and where I'm going, so it makes sense for them. But I have those check-in meetings for the same thing. I'm like, they need to know that I'm still here, right? Yeah. And that I haven't forgotten about them.
Yeah.
And they're not just a number at perhaps the other gyms. That I like to know what my people's goals are and how they're going and things like that. So yeah, dude, 1,000%. I love that there's really cool growth for all of us when we start looking at customer journey. And I encourage people to do that. Same thing was encouraged to me, and I'd never really done it. I'm like, take every experience you have when you're checking in to fly out at the counter. What was that like? What was, dude, because everything's a customer journey. Everything. Literally. And you order something from a company, how does it come?
Yep.
What's the unpackaging like?
Yeah.
One of the things that we've done for our customer journey forever, and that I will never stop doing, I've done this since day one, a handwritten letter. Everyone that joins my facility and signs up gets a handwritten letter from me.
Yeah. I remember the first letter you sent me.
Yep. And that's important to me, man.
Yeah.
Like it's because, and it eats up a lot of my time sometimes, dude. Like there's been weeks where I've literally spent 2 hours writing handwritten letters because of signups that we had.
Mm.
And sometimes every once in a while I'm like, should I pass this to somebody? And in the minute, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Even to the point where we're working on trying to get our online store set up and doing some drop shipping. Because I don't really have the bandwidth to touch every garment and ship it.
Yeah.
So if we can do some drop shipping, but I'm going to get a handwritten letter to those people that are drop shipping.
For sure.
And if that adds an extra 2 days before it ships out, fine. Yeah. Because like I want that piece in there. And so I just, an encouragement to people, I'm like, figure out what your customer journey is. Yeah. Or what it isn't, maybe. Yeah. And because as you and I talked a little bit last week leading into this conversation, your customer journey is going to impact the lifetime value of that customer.
That's right.
Is the hope, right? And so customer journey isn't just on the sale, it's also on the exit. Yep. So to my point earlier, when I have people leave, I had a guy cancel yesterday. It was schedule related and work related. And he's like, I'm literally not getting home until like 10 p.m. And I live a little ways out of town. He's like, I'm just going to do a little home setup. It's going to be really simple, but like for now, this is what I need to do. Yeah. And he's like, when can I bring this key fob back to you? And so here's the customer journey piece. And I said, look, bro, I was like, that's your key fob. You paid for it. I don't want it back because here's the deal. If circumstances change for you and you're like, this isn't working, I need back in the barbell club. Yeah. Bro, let's just reactivate that same key fob. Yeah. And so for me, I'm like, hey, this is yours. Keep it as a reminder, a token of my love. Yeah. So that like, dude, like on that exit, like having a conversation like that and being like, and I gave him a little bit of a hard time. I was like, I'm not saying you'll fall in this box, but statistically, people that do the home gym thing, they usually end up back at a gym because it's just not the same. For sure. There's something about going somewhere for it. But I said, dude, like, hang on to it. I'm wishing you the best of luck. And then I was like, hey, dude, what's your setup? Do you need more equipment? Yeah. So, and I said, I've got a couple extra pieces that are in my garage that I'm not using. Are you interested in them? Yeah. Yeah. Because if I can help you with your home setup, like, I'm not trying to help you leave and stay away. Yeah. But why not, you know? And I said, dude, and also I was like, even if you're not here, bro, you still have access to us. Like if you need a training program, a DIY program you can just do on your own with the setup you have at home, dude, let me know. Yeah. We'll help you rip on that. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm letting him know these other entry points. Yeah. He doesn't have to be in my building for me to still serve and help him. And so the customer journey is on the exit too. Yeah. And when people leave, it sucks. And that's the thing of doing business, that you're always going to have people, you have new people coming in and you're going to have people going out. Yep. And it's trying to monitor both of those doors. Yeah. Yeah. Monitor the exit. Why are they leaving?
Why are they leaving? Yeah.
What do I need to change to maybe keep more retention? And sometimes there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Sometimes it just wasn't a fit, and so I always try to have the splits be amicable if I can. Always. Because I'm like, if that person changes their other mind and they feel like they want to be back and it wasn't the next place wasn't the fit they thought, dude, like I want to be able to bring them back in without any like weirdness or shame either. And so that's something with the customer journey is like, what's it look like on the front end, but what does it look like on the back end? Yeah. Like what happens if people are leaving,
I mean, the most relatable experience is when you go to a restaurant.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Like it's like you had that waitress either did a great job or she didn't, and like the food could have been great, but if your waitress was a straight fucking waiter was a straight fucking, you ain't, and not that you're not going back, but it'll probably be a while before you go back.
It impacts the experience, even if the food was money, But I think like it can innately affect how the food tastes. Yeah, yeah. Indirectly,
for sure.
I have, and I've said this a lot. I think everyone should, if you're young, you should find a way to wait tables.
Yeah, work in the. I was a busboy before I joined the Marine Corps. Yeah, yeah.
Work in the food industry because it will teach you so much about customer journey, so much about building rapport in a very short amount of time. Yeah. Especially on the serving side. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it is a valuable tool. Yeah. And I think everyone should do it. It also, I think, gives you some grace and some mercy towards those types of staff because it's not easy. Yeah. and you're the dude, the messenger, you know, always get shot.
Yeah.
And dude, as a server, you're the messenger.
Yeah.
Dude, I've waited on so many tables where apparently in their brain, I owned the place.
Yeah.
I was the chef.
Yeah.
I was also washing the dishes. So like you're the one that kind of takes it all.
Sure.
So it's good at helping you navigate issues in real time, fixing problems. Your multitasking will go through the roof.
Yeah.
And it, dude, is fun. Like I remember those days. In fact, I kind of miss it sometimes where like you get into a busy shift, dude, where it was just assholes and elbows, dude.
Yeah.
And like you couldn't like, and you get into like a little bit of a flow state, dude. It was almost like, yeah, it was cool. Like there's just something about it. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, man, be kind to your servers.
Yeah.
But like everyone should do it, man.
No,
to realize
well, and,
what that's
and like throughout your life, hopefully, at least every normal person, you're gonna go to a restaurant.
1000%.
You know, so like just understanding and like having that, like, oh, I know what it's like to be a waiter or busboy.
Well, and then you understand the logistics, so you have
Exactly.
more. You're like, oh yeah, it's okay. It's taking a while because I've noticed that this is her section, and she's got this big 6-top that's obviously very needy. So I can be patient. You know? No, it's true, man. That I talked to someone recently. They were asking me about because Abby and I went to Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I got the question I get a lot of times, like, man, you guys go to Vegas a lot, and like people are curious about why, because their experience in Vegas are very different than ours. Yeah, because they went for a bachelor party or bachelorette party, and we don't drink, and we work out every day, and we stay nice places and eat good food. But like, I was sharing with them that Las Vegas, depending on where you're at, is one of the few places on planet Earth that still really cares about customer service, and it's cool. Yeah. And so it's a really interesting place for watching customer journey and like, what did I like about that experience as you go through that? So now customer journey, right, for you is a little bit different where some of your stuff's virtual versus the in-person, right? So has that been an interesting dynamic for you?
Yeah. So a big part, like the way that our business model works is that, you know, they come. We have certain dates on the calendar where they can come and train with us at a specific location that we're at. Sometimes, you know, and most of our customers are actually kind of in that 35 to 44. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, like being a precision rifle shooter, it's in today's world. I mean, it's expensive, right? The barrier to entry, unfortunately, is high in the sense that, like, you know, just to, you know, rifle ammunition alone, I mean, like you're close to, assuming if you have a family, you're close to at least making, you know, 6 figures.
So,
right?
So just for listeners that aren't in this field, give me an idea. I'm like, okay, like for me, because I'm not in this field. I'm like, okay, what's my cost to entry for like a mid-range rifle that would be a good starting point? The ammunition and any of the other gear that I'll need. Can you give me a sticker price on that?
As you say, mid-range, you're probably looking at,
because listen, I'm not entering at the bottom of the barrel, right?
Okay,
I'm not interested in doing that, but I'm also not going to go to the top. So
so you're probably looking at like $5,000, right? Mid-range.
That's for all of the things.
No, that's just the rifle.
That's just the rifle.
Yeah. So you're probably looking at $7,500 for rifle plus accessories to get the things that you would need to, I'm going to say, enjoy your experience with precision rifle shooting.
So entry level, let's just say, safe to say $7,000 to $10,000.
Yes.
If I want to be like mid-range entry level. Yeah.
And for guys that like go into this like heavily, I mean, their rifle system, in just one rifle system, is anywhere between 10 to $13,000, depending on what optic they're putting, or their rifle setup package, right? That's just a rifle. Now, if they're hand loading, if they're nerding out on that, if they're getting all the, you know, super expensive support equipment, right now you're looking close to 20 to 25, 30, even sometimes $30,000, right? You guys with multiple rifles, now you triple that, right?
Yeah, sure.
So most of our customers are, you know, and this is one of the things that I immediately will tell them when they show up to class, because I recognize that, you know, hey, like the barrier to entry to go into precision rifle shooting is not cheap. So that tells me that you're very successful in what you do, right? Because of that, I value your time that you've decided that, hey, I want to come train with my team for these 2 days. Because that tells me you bought a ticket. You took 2 days from either family and from work, whatever your time costs, and now you're spending another, X amount of money on ammunition and stuff like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that customer journey looks like is like, hey, I don't want to just touch you for those 2 days.
Yeah.
I want to figure out how I can touch you as the moment that you even hear who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is where like the marketing piece really comes in and kind of my shift of like approaching that, like, like the, separating ourselves from the rest of the industry of like the gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, hey, like nothing that my guys are teaching or I'm teaching is any different than what's out there.
It's not proprietary.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
You guys.
But like in the long range shooting community in general, this was even in the sniper community, was like there was like gatekeeping in the sense that like you shouldn't know that information until you got to a certain part. Right. Like I heard, so when I was a sniper school instructor, I had Navy SEALs come through my class as students. And one of the things that we asked is, guys that are not traditionally in the regular sniper platoons is like, hey, do you have much time behind a bolt gun? And they're like, no, dude, if you're not a sniper, they don't let you touch that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
right.
It blows my mind because, in growing up in my platoon, like in the case that our team leader died, right, or our sniper died, like everyone in the team should be able to understand how to operate that thing.
Right.
But fast forward to even like, one of my platoon sergeants who passed away, and I'm guilty of this in my 20s of like just all I wanted to do when I was became essentially the chief sniper of my unit was just thrash anybody that wanted to try out for snipers. So we had this indoctrination where like it's a 5-day essentially selection process where like you show me that you want this, right? And it's essentially mentally exhausting, physically fit. We test all those things, but it was mainly focused on breaking you to where like, hey, like I can train somebody that has heart. I can't train the bitch out of you.
Yeah.
Right. Once you quit, that's it. Right. Yeah. And so my platoon sergeant, when he looked at the 5-day training schedule that I put together, he's like, I don't like this. And I was like, Gunny, why? He's like, if these guys, even if they don't come to snipers, they're going to be alongside with you in battle. Why wouldn't you want to train them to the best of your ability? Right. And not just crush them. Right. Because when your ass gets in a pinch and you need to call for fucking help, right, it goes back to that kind of like brand of or reputation, as you call it. Like you want them coming to save your ass, right? And if you ruin that for them or not even give them that experience of like, how can I train this person to be the best infantryman possible? You know what I mean? So like it definitely changed my perspective, right? And that has evolved with time, obviously, but yeah, the whole gatekeeping thing has just been interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting, because, as you were telling me that and you're telling me the model you had built, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Survival of the fittest. And in that scenario, it makes sense. But then hearing that, I was like, wow, completely different angle. Yeah. To the point of like, bringing everyone up. And that's a message that I've come across several times in the personal development space, is like doing things in a way where everybody wins. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a way to do that. Yeah. Now, of course, like at some point, having heart and self-efficacy is always going to be one of the contributing factors to how far each and every one of us gets. Yeah. But that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And the thing is the way that he said it is like, as long as the training schedule, right, the people are going to weed themselves out, right? But like if the training is to where all it is just trying to crush people and there's no training value out of it.
Yeah, there's no
right?
training. Yeah.
And so like that, and I was 25, around that, so this 11 years ago, right? And I'm circling back to this now. I'm sorry, I know we're taking a few steps back here.
No,
one of the things that you had said that popped up that I wanted to say, but I didn't want to interrupt you about you when you were having one-on-one sessions with customers and queuing them, right? And like one of the things that students would always say to me was, God, where were you 10 years ago? And I would tell them, I was like, honestly, I probably am not the same instructor that I was.
Yeah, you wouldn't have wanted me 10 years ago.
Exactly, right?
Trust me. Yeah, you wouldn't have wanted me. I mean, it'd have been okay, but you wouldn't have wanted me.
It goes back to the growth, like understanding your growth of like, hey, I haven't peaked yet in my instructor teacher, right? Like I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to, interact with different walks of life or whatever. Like I'm adding to that bank. But yeah, like I would hope that in 10 years that I have the same students coming back to me, and then they're like, holy crap, this was a completely different experience than I experienced 10 years ago, because I always want to be evolving the way that I teach, the way that I interact with you, even my own personal skill, right?
Yeah, for sure. And this conversation has me thinking about an experience that I had at a personal development workshop that I went to. It was a weekend-long one, and this was in my 20s. And I'll preface it with this, going back to the conversation of like gatekeeping this information and how there's a little bit of insecurity of letting it all out because, you've got competitors that are going to take it and rebrand it and try to make it their own. But in a weird way, you're even helping more people because you're allowing that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And so like for me, like one of my biggest missions is like to expose as many people to the concepts that I use in fitness and strength training. Yeah. Because again, if they give it a chance, it's a tributary of positivity for the rest of their life. Yeah. And if that means the information that I put out on my YouTube channel, on my vlogs, or on social media, or the program that I'm running right now that's open to the general public, and they can take that information and those PDFs that they got after they purchased and do what they want with them. Yeah, they're going to get into some hands that maybe wasn't necessarily by design, but I'm like, there's also this spin on it. But I'm like, cool. But if that helps them help more people and more efficiently. Yeah. And again, I'm like, no, like I believe in these messages because they work and I know why. Yeah. Then that's a win too.
For sure.
And so that's a preface to this. I was in this workshop and they did this exercise with us one afternoon, and they split the group of maybe like 15 or 20 of us into two groups, team 1, team 2. And it was this, I don't even remember what the game was, but it was like, it was solving like a puzzle or something. And they were on one side of the room and we were on the other side of the room, split, and it was like a time thing, and whoever gets it first wins, and there was some sort of prize on whoever wins or whatever. And so we divide, and the bulk majority of the room immediately goes into the like, yeah, we're going to destroy these guys. Like we're like, like that competitive nature of like I got this, we're going to figure this out. Like we're first, they're second, all these things, right? So what they did is they laid out the ground rules of what the game was, right? And they were really simple. They were really simple rules. The long and short of it is this. You couldn't solve the issue or the problem that we were solving, if I remember this correctly. You couldn't solve it without the other team.
Oh, interesting.
But that was never given as a rule. And it was never given as a guideline that you can't work together. Yeah. It just said, this half is over here and that half is over there. But we immediately went into division. We immediately went into the fuck you, fight me. Yeah, yeah. And when you come to the realization that the whole time the goal was this objective, and how much faster we would have gotten there, or how much further we would have gotten working together as a team, as opposed to that immediate division.
For sure.
And then like it's been said before, like if you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. Yeah. Yeah. But it was this realization of this concept of like, there's a way for me to win and chase my goals, but bring other people with me. Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about that in the relationship of like this gatekeeping of information and, well, this is mine. And I don't want to share it all because I don't, and I'm like, again, none of it's new. Yeah. No. So like, just put it out there. Yeah. Like you don't have anything to lose. And in fact, you probably have more to gain by kind of running it that way. Yeah. Cool, man. Anything else that's on your mind for customer journey that you want to hit on before we switch to the next little topic here?
No, I think just to say from my experience with you, I think that you do a great job with the Barbell Club and your personal brand. Not, I guess it's not necessarily a customer journey, but just like the relationships that you build. I guess the brand journey, right? Of like, and this is something that I try to educate my partners, right? With, you know, depending on your audience and stuff like that. I'm sure some of your audience might have partnerships or sponsorships and stuff like that. And so like, keep in mind they're a customer too, right? So like how they interact with you, like if like any one of my partners, they're like, hey, you know, let's call Phil, or Phil's calling, right? I want to make sure that that's a positive experience for them. Like, oh, dude, Phil's he's gonna completely, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Over deliver on this, right? I think that is definitely something that's overlooked as well.
Yeah, what it is, it is customer journey, and it's your brand, right?
Yeah,
and and I talked about it last week in the episode, is you're building trust, whether it's good or bad. Yeah, you're building the expectation of what people will come to expect from you. And a quick example is I called one of my buddies the other day, and then when I was talking to him later, I was like, hey man, I called you. He's like, yeah. He's like, bro, but you didn't leave a voicemail. Because I'm the guy that calls people still. Yeah, I'm like, multiple people are like, dude, you're the only dude that calls me. Yeah. Like literally, if my phone rings, I know it's probably Luke or my mom. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm like, I pick up the phone and I call people. Yeah. And I will often leave a voicemail. And I just happened to not that day, and it's because I happened to be busy, and I was like, someone walked in my office or something, and he's like, you didn't, but like he lost trust in me because like I didn't leave that voice. He's like, bro, you didn't leave your voicemail. And it's funny because previously he would be like, dude, why are you leaving me a voicemail? You know. But like he's gotten so used to it that like he's expecting that, and there's that trust there, and so I try to do that with communication generally. Yeah. This morning was Exhibit A. Yeah. I was looking at the clock. We had a little change in our plans, and ironically, lacking communication. I had in my brain my wife is going to take my daughter, but she thought I was going to take her, and I was like, yeah, I can take her still. Let me call Phil because I need to renegotiate, because I knew that if I took her, it was going to put me here 5 minutes late. Yeah. We're meeting at 8. I just be like, 5 minutes, it's Phil. Yeah. We're bros. It's all good. No, I picked up the phone. I called you. Hey, this is going to put me a few minutes late. Yep. Because that matters to me. Yeah. And that's something that I've tried to integrate into my brand. And then hopefully that's building trust. People that are like, no, if Luke tells you he's going to do something, he does it. And dude, and I hate it. I hate it when I miss the mark. Yeah. Yeah. And I had a situation yesterday where I had a member cancel, and every once in a while we've had some issues with our withdrawal system, and it's quite the process signing into it, because it's a bank system that we use, and however it happened, the cancellation didn't happen, so the withdrawals kept happening, and I didn't know. Yeah, I thought I had canceled them. Yeah. They thought I'd canceled them, and then they look and found out that like for a couple months I was still pulling money from them. Yeah. Bro. Yeah. Not how I do it, right? And so I was apologetic. I was like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I was like, let me figure out the exact months. I was like, I'm cutting you a check today. Yeah. So I did. I cut the check and I dropped it in the mail. But I try to always renegotiate rather than just like falling short of the mark. And it kind of comes out of that communication thing. Yeah. So the encouragement here, hopefully that people are getting from this, from you and I both, is like, look at your customer journey. Even if you don't own a business, right? Yeah. Customer journey is still a thing. Look at your customer journey with your friends, your family. Like, what's that interaction? And it's worth spending time on. So, all right, man. So we're going to shift back to the third thing that was on my list of life events for you. Yeah. And you touched on it briefly earlier about losing your home. Yeah. Bro, you had a house fire. Yeah. Not something that anyone wants to go through. Not something that people ever will imagine happens to them. Yeah. Right? It's something you hear about and it happens, but you went through that. So I guess share what you're willing to share about that. And I guess you got to give us a little bit of the history about what happened. Yeah. And then let's kind of talk about what maybe what growth you experienced through that.
So August 24th, 2025, at the very pretty much tail end of summer. So average Sunday night, just got done cooking dinner, and Claire and I and the baby were about to go on our walk. Zoe had just left with her, really one of her good friends downtown. And essentially, we got done cooking dinner, and I had asked Claire, I was like, hey, do you want to go on our walk? And so essentially, she's like, yeah, let's go. I just got to clean up real quick. And so I was like, okay. So then I grab Ari, because I'm watching him, and I walk downstairs, And next thing you know, I hear this loud, just like pop. And and it almost sounded like just something went off, right? And so downstairs,
Like firearm pop. Is that what it sounded like? To
no,
you?
not that.
When
Not
you say something went
yeah,
off.
not that aggressive, like not that loud. It was just a loud, audible, like just pop,
Okay.
right? And so within seconds, noticing the hallway that leads into my reloading room, which has like acoustic panels, but it's mainly the I call it my catch-all shelf because it housed a lot of like empty boxes for scopes and just like, the tools and stuff like that. Stuff that everyone has a catch-all.
Sure,
right?
sure, right.
That thing is on fire, and adjacent to that hallway leads into my reloading room with, as you can probably tell, powder and stuff like that as a long range shooter and competitive shooter. And so, within, seconds, Claire runs downstairs, checks on me and the baby. I'm kind of like trying to figure out like how like we can stop this, right? But at that point, because of how quick it moved, because it not only did I have all those empty boxes, but a lot of the acoustic panels and stuff like that are super flammable retardant, which you don't know until, right? So.
Right.
What was a good idea turned out to be a bad idea. Within probably 30 seconds, me, Claire, and Ari are running upstairs. And then the first essentially initial kind of explosion happens, with essentially we're thinking that one of the powder containers and stuff like that just got hot or super something happened to as we were running upstairs, because you've been to my house, right where the elk head was at, which hangs over the stairs there, like right at the entrance to downstairs. That was like seeing those movies, like a ball of fire as we were like.
So you had
literally,
you had this another explosion as you're heading up the stairs.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it was just like
following you.
It was
up the
like
stairs.
It was like a flame ball. Yeah. So both my hair got like fried. Cloud was running behind us too. His whiskers got I forgot the actual name of it when your hair gets burnt.
It's like melted.
Yeah. And so because how Claire was holding Ari at the back of his head slightly got, and so we called 911. Fire department showed up. They were quick. They were great. So fast forward, investigators, both the fire department and the investigator that the insurance company hires, they go to make sure that there's no negligence, and based off what they found, potentially thought it was some type of lithium battery that just happened to go off, right?
Crazy.
And the biggest thing that I'm worried about, obviously, is the fact that as someone that owns firearms and hand loads and stuff like that, it was like, shit, like, did I have too much powder in the house, or whatever, and thankfully, talking to and doing my research, it's like, no, I had, I was within means of what I needed to have in the house. I took all the safety precautions. The only thing that I didn't have that I should have had was a fire extinguisher, which was not. Like, now I got the 3 of those motherfuckers in this in this house here now. So the fire happened. Displacement, right, has been probably one of the biggest struggles. But honestly, like a big help was, number one, our initial community here. Yeah, Dan Vashton, Michael Munn, and Amanda Munn. You already know those guys are freaking great. A few of my other good friends here helped me with pulling the stuff out. Once the investigator cleared the scene, I was able to go in there, get the rifles and stuff like that out that were salvageable. But everything pretty much downstairs was, because of the smoke damage and how hot it got, was pretty much torched. Right. But because of all the smoke, and stuff like that with modern, essentially, homes with all the plastic and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff was everywhere. So the first couple months, I mean, was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because like you would think we'd be thinking about these things. They're like, oh, let's try to see if it's still salvageable. You know what I mean? And so we go to the house and it'd still be just like a wreck, you know? So the first like 2 or 3 months before the contractors that we initially hired to go out and demo and pull the inventory, I mean, it was hard to go back to the house. Sure. You know what I mean? And so, but the local community here, as well as my long-range shooting community, I mean, stepped up in a really big way. Claire's business partner started a GoFundMe, and that made its way to the precision rifle shooting community, and then that thing just kind of got out of control. We had to actually shut it down just because we were like this is way too much money, you know? And so we shut it down, and then on top of that, a buddy of mine who's been to several of my classes, he's a good friend of my industry, reached out to a lot of company partners and put together a rifle together for me to raffle off. And the donations would go essentially back to me. So like
Killer.
That's been great, right? Because like, yes, insurance has been great. They've been taking care of a lot of stuff, but like the fact that I had to stop working for, you know, essentially 5 months, you know, like couldn't work videography wise. All my, you know, my hard drives and stuff like that got burnt. Always have a backup. Computers, all those things. I mean, the only thing that I had that wasn't downstairs was like my laptop, right? And so we got displaced. We live right now, you know, in this kind of like Airbnb rental and stuff like that. And so I think the hardest part about all of this is just trying to find norm, you know, and then not being the victim to circumstance, you know. I definitely can see where, you know, and I think it definitely happened within the first like month of like, why did this happen to us? Like, what did we do wrong? You know, and like, I was born and raised a Catholic. My mom raised me in the church, and although I don't go to church on Sundays and stuff like that, I still have like a faith-based system. You know what I mean? And then asking kind of like, what's the bigger picture here? Like, why? You know? And so,
what was the answer you got?
Still trying to figure that out, but I think it was to slow down. I think it was to, you know, because I think at that point is when a lot of things were starting to like, you know, video business was doing really good. I was, you know, the Cadre was essentially still 7, 8 months in, and we were trying to really get those things going. And I think with Ari being at that point 7 months old, you know, like Claire and I were both working from home, and we would have this weird just work schedule that was like it just wasn't working in terms of just like, okay, like I'd have baby for half a day, then we'd switch off, even us having a nanny. But I also looking, it was like, I think it was also like a force to hit the reset and actually now separate myself from my work, from my home, you know, working. And we talked about this, especially with Ari in the age that he's at now, of like, I mean, you saw downstairs, like there was guns everywhere, right? And it's not a area for kids. And thankfully, you know, one of the things with Zoe is that, like, you know, the very first thing that I taught her was rifle safety. Is like, as soon as you pick up, you know, first off, don't touch my guns. But number 2 is, if you know, you do, this is how you safely and check that. But like, you can't do that with a toddler. You know what I mean? So I think it forced me into a position quicker than I expected to like, hey, I just need to get all this stuff out of here. and that now, other than like a few things, I don't think I would have the same armory directly inside my house.
Right.
Again.
Yeah.
Unless like I had a shop or something.
Sure.
But that's kind of what we're here now.
So maybe a message is slow down, and then I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like in most scenarios like this, when you get past the initial, blunt trauma of all that you've lost, that's, I guess, worldly, you start to realize it's a quick reminder of how grateful you are for you have your family.
Yeah.
That everyone was safe, and that that's what matters most.
Yeah. Because all the things are material, and it's funny. I'm glad you said that because when Zoe says like, I feel bad that all of your stuff is gone, and I'm like, don't feel bad. I was like, when she said that, I was already thinking about how like it was just stuff, and that at the end of the day, like that stuff doesn't define like who I am and like what I'm still able to continue to do to provide for my family, right? In terms of just like, I guess I was still thinking in the mindset of like I don't need all these rifles to still teach somebody how to shoot a rifle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that there's always kind of like this tie to, especially thinking about like the work aspect of like, oh, I need all of these things for my business to keep going. Everything in my business is in here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, of like how I provide for my family, which is teaching other people how to shoot a rifle. Right. So all the things that I lost are just material things.
Yeah. So in some ways it was empowering to a certain extent to realize how you are the business in a certain way. And doesn't mean there's not, some pain and dysfunction that happens from losing the things and then having to replace some of the things that you do need and go through that. Of course, that's never easy, but I saw this thing the other day, and I've heard it before, but for some reason, I guess it was just the headspace I was in that really settled in with me more. But it was this reminder that we're born into this world with literally nothing, and we go out the exact same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All this stuff that's in between, it's like, it's nice to have nice things, and it's fun to have goals and, hobbies and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's important that we've got an opportunity to have those things and enjoy those things, but keeping that North Star of like what matters most. And, it's fun to have those things, but like they're going to stay here when we move on.
Yeah. I think what was really not really difficult. I mean, it was difficult, but I think because the baby was so unfazed in terms of just like he was so young that I think the biggest person to really out of all four of us was Zoe, just because her room was next to my, and so all of her stuff was completely non-salvageable, and so her friends stepped up in a really big way, and she didn't even tell her friends off the bat that we had a house fire. It was essentially a friend had found out from like a parent, because my neighbor is the elementary school principal at Eastside's principal, and he meets with a friend group every Wednesday with some of the teachers, and so the teacher essentially told his daughter, who goes to school with Zoe, like, hey, did you know Zoe had a house fire? And she's like, no. And so all of her friends essentially gave her a bunch of spare clothes that she could wear and stuff like that. But yeah, no, like I think about, and I try not to dwell on it, because like it if I dwell on it, it puts me back in this like what if, right? But of like if we would have went on that walk, another 5-10 minutes later, like would we even have a house?
No, probably not.
To come back to.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you go back through it, if and when you do, and you allow yourself to think about it all, you can see all the little, again, two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
In the midst of that tragedy, you're probably able to, as you're able to zoom out now, see all the little as Kiara, my guest, put it, God winks. These little things of divine intervention that like were these little like firewalls, no pun intended, that were put in, you know, and yeah, like what if, dude, you'd been starting from complete ground zero, you know, where at least you were able to have the structure of the home and build it back that way. And that's the process you guys are in now. How far out are you from being back in your home?
So I think a month after, or within a couple weeks, once we were finding a contractor, you recommended your brother-in-law, Chase. He's been phenomenal. I mean, something about the Whitlock family. Clearly, you guys, those guys are top notch. But Chase has been great. He's I think we're probably about 85% there, and so he's expecting us to be moving at the end, probably end of April, early May. Cool, and man. So, shout out to Claire again. She's the one that had to make all the decision-making processes for building. I mean, I didn't realize how stressful something like that would be. Yeah. Right. In terms of just like the overall design. Yep. You know, because like I think in my head, I was thinking like, oh, he's just gonna put the house back to like where it was, right? But things are outdated, right? And it's like, hey, we might as well like take this opportunity, make the house that we want. You know what I mean?
Customize it.
And so, you know, like again, we kind of lean more on Claire because of her more kind of design experience. I mean, she's the one that designed downstairs in our kind of first studio area. She did a really great job at that. You know, as for me, like I would just stick to like black and white walls. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, no, it's been a long 9 months that I don't even wish my worst enemy to go through. You know, because like it's just it's horrible. So
I have no doubt. Well, I'm glad you guys are on the other side of it. I'm glad that it wasn't worse than it was, and somehow, like when the dust settles, like more often than not, dude, I think when it's all back in, it'll almost have been more of a blessing than it was anything else. Yeah. Like you said, it forced your hand on getting a space where you can get locked in on work and separate, you know, work and home life a little bit more, which probably already turned up your efficiency. Yeah. It's given you guys an opportunity to make that home even more of your home and customize it to fit your lives even better. I would imagine it gave you an opportunity to realize, you know, the hard work you've put in all these years of what kind of community that's actually built for you, not just here locally, but virtually, and how those people showed up for you. And hopefully that was a tender moment of like almost like humility for you to realize like, man, this is rad. Yeah. The way people showed up and to maybe realize that you're making maybe a bigger impact than maybe you ever realized, the way that people chose to show up for you. And honestly, like, you know, to your point with Claire and your family, going through challenges together is what draws us even closer. So I would say you guys are probably even locked in more than maybe you have been in the past. Yeah. Which I have a hard question on here for you that this is maybe a perfect segue into. So you guys are building this life you want. You've got this new business. You're navigating the struggles of a fire and all these other variables. You've chosen to procreate. You've brought another kid in this world, and you've got this family you're building. Why have you and Claire not decided to not get married?
That's a great question. I think so. Being completely transparent here, I was married twice before to Zoe's mom initially, and then after Zoe's mom was my partner in between Zoe's mom and Claire, Nicole. She's the one that passed away 2 years ago from domestic violence, and unfortunately, both of those marriages were more, you know, like just kind of like just one of those things like that happened in the sense of, you know, this allows me to get all of us benefits, right? And we loved each other, right? But also, it was never one of those things that like we had this huge ceremony for, right? And I think because of that, it had left a kind of bad taste in my mouth because it had been essentially both divorced, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And for Claire, before she moved to back to the States, she was in a long relationship with her partner down there, and I think they had their marriage as well. And so when we first got together, one of the things that we did talk about was like, what are our thoughts on marriage? You know, and our thought had always been that like it's like, do we need a certificate to tell us about the love that we have for each other and stuff like that? Like, what does like marriage in 2026 mean? That being said, I would say for probably the last 2 years, I've definitely changed kind of my understanding of that, you know? And I think more so or less, I don't want to say waiting for the right moment, but making it so that it's pretty special for her and for both of us because we've already been both previously married. Like I want to make sure that it's like because I didn't engage, or I didn't propose to my first two. It was just kind of one of those like, hey, let's get married.
Happened. It was default.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I from my past, I can share similar sentiment or reservation towards the idea of marriage. Not from being married previously, but I come from a family, and this is not throwing shade at either of my folks, but I have no model to follow. Both my parents are married and divorced 3 times. And so it gave me a pause for hesitation towards it too. I mean, I dated my poor wife for 7 years almost before I married her. And some people don't know that, but it wasn't ever an intentional thing. But I can look at it now and see systematically why I was hesitant. And there was other culminating factors for me with my own personal development or lack thereof at that time. But I told my wife one time, I said, if I can just be honest with you, I have one major regret in marrying you. And she's like, I says that I didn't do it sooner. Because what I've realized is like I have an opportunity to rewrite the book on what does marriage look like. And I would argue that so do you guys. Even though they were previous marriages of your own, you have a chance to rewrite the book, and then maybe even more importantly, set the model of like what is marriage? What does it look like so that Zoe knows, so that Ari knows, and they see this and I'm like, oh wow, like both my parents were married and divorced previous times, but like when they worked on themselves and when they came together, they completely like broke the chains of what society says it should look like. And right now the problem with society is that it doesn't give it any respect. Marriage is like an afterthought, and it's just like, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just get divorced. And so it's just it's an interesting concept. And this of course comes with zero judgment from my end. I'm just curious. I love and care about you both. Because of how important my marriage is to me and how it does mean something to me because of what we've chosen to put on it. I can't help but want that for other people too.
No, I see that.
And I see you guys with this this beautiful family, and especially now a new child. I was like, I need to sing at this wedding.
Yeah. No, you'll be there. I'm glad you said that. I think a lot of it too, like when you say that in terms of just like me and Claire have this conversation all the time, especially with Zoe. And I hope Zoe will listen to this later on in her life. She's probably not too old enough to listen to it now, but like a lot of regrets of like how I managed my relationship initially with her mom when we did separate, in terms of just like, like just keeping my P's and Q's and my thoughts to myself. Right. But now that she's older and realizing like, and even having this for Ari of just like the relationship that Claire and I have of like being so positive is like, I hope that Zoe is able to see that and be like, this is what a healthy relationship looks like and should look like in terms of communication, right? Because like Zoe's eventually going to find the love of her life and experience that. And like, I hope that she's able to experience off the bat the relationship that I have with Claire, not necessarily the relationship that I had with my previous two that Zoe was also a witness to in her younger years.
Well, she can learn from both of them.
Yeah.
Learn from all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think, which is probably good, you know. I think about that with my children, mine being younger than Zoe, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, man, I've set the stage for my children to learn a lot of things, and not all of it's good.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I've made the appropriate corrections past those mistakes that they can see them, and then they can see the growth beyond it. Yeah. And so I was just a question I had for you. I was just kind of curious, and sounds like you're pondering it, and maybe even open to the idea of, you know, maybe there's a chance to, like I said, rewrite that book and create a really cool life with a new model of like what does like holy matrimony actually mean and look like, you know?
Yeah.
But
well, dude, one question for you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So last time our big podcast, or our first podcast together, we talked about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right. And how that, I feel like it's a moving target, right? Where do you think you're at with that now, right? And now that you've been in your business for as long as you have, what does your definition of success look like? So kind of like a two-part question.
My favorite definition of success, which I've shared a lot on this podcast, is that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal or worthy ideals. In this sense, where we're talking about multiple things.
Yeah.
Can you be successful in all the above? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But it depends on how you're measuring success. We chatted about this briefly last week after we were done recording my episode, and we were talking about this very thing. And you know, it's this question. It's like, well, can you have both?
Yeah.
Can you be a good father and a good husband?
Yeah.
And be a really successful entrepreneur and CEO?
Yeah.
And there's opinions out there that say, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And you have to go all in on one or the other. And the other one is just going to kind of suffer a little bit. I don't think that I believe that.
Yeah.
And I also don't think it's balance. I think it's, you have established non-negotiables. And much like the workouts that we talked about, right? You figure out what your anchors are. And mine are the 4 that are behind me, right? So there may be seasons, much like that workout analogy, where I don't have the same amount of time to have the full, you know, extensive workout that I'm used to having, that I would prefer to having, but I still didn't put it on the back burner. I still didn't shelf it. So what I did do is I kept it as an anchor to keep it established, to keep it from being tossed about in the waves and the storms of life. And in those seasons with life and family balance, especially, there might be a season where you have to be a little bit more involved in work. Maybe you're traveling a little bit more in your scenario. Maybe, you know, it's X, Y, or Z. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not spending time with family. Maybe it's not the same amount of time, but I better be damn sure that I'm showing up and that it's a quality and it's intentional if it's a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's not going away completely, but I think there will be seasons, and it's a little bit of a dance and a little bit of a game of chess. And I think it can be done successfully, but you have to be willing to zoom out and plan ahead. And you have to look at what's coming and not just get buried in it to where you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
And so where I'm at in it is that it comes back to some pretty heavy communication with my wife.
Yeah.
Where, hey, these are the roles that I fulfill. Hey, I've got this project coming up. There's going to be some later nights as I'm building out this Build to Better You program.
Yeah.
So I might not be home as frequently for bedtime routine, because that's one of my things that I try to have as a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I might be missing a couple of those, just so you know.
For sure.
So there's this conversation to have where she's in the know. We're not just arbitrarily blindly going through this. We're not just like letting the waves and the winds take us. Is like, we're actually like figuring out, how do we stay anchored, and how do I keep my order of operation, or whatever the things anchor you, how do I keep and maintain that relationship with God? How do I keep and maintain that relationship with family, even if it looks a little bit different the next 4 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I maintain my freedom compass? How do I make sure in this time of stress and a little bit of a shift, can I keep my free agency to respond appropriately?
Yeah.
Responding to the extra work that I have to put in to make sure I'm responding to that by not completely going away from these other things that matter. How do I keep my fitness in during all of that? Because these are your non-negotiables. Build your personal brand, which is what will give you success as you navigate this winding road to success. Yeah. It's not a straight linear line. Yeah. Anyone that's on any sort of journey right now realizes that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, is it balance? I mean, I guess. Yeah. But you're never stopping, like kind of moving the chip so nothing gets too out of skew for too long. Yeah. Yeah. And if in doing it that way, it slows me down and it takes me longer to get to the goals that I have, so be it. Yeah. And if it keeps me from never getting there, I'll never get to my financial goals because I continue to prioritize my family. Yeah. Fuck it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. And I think it's a moving target. Yeah. It's a moving target and you have to be willing to adjust. Maybe you were shooting at that target in prone and now you got to be in half kneeling. Yeah. Yeah. And now the wind shifted. Yeah. Now it's a completely different call. So I need to go back to the drawing board here. Yeah. Like, I think just being willing to renegotiate in your life on the fly without letting go of the things that anchor you is what keeps you pointed in the right direction. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. That's my answer to that. It's great. Dude, I had like 5 other things we needed to get through on this, but we're out of time. No worries. So I don't know. Maybe we have a third one because I wanted to get more into the storytelling for business because I think that's huge. Yeah. But yeah, there's always, I mean, we'll be together for a while. So absolutely, bro. Absolutely. So always good for a part 3. No, I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. You know, from behind the scenes, obviously I listen to all the podcasts. I listen to your message. You have a great message, bro. Like the world needs it. More people in the world need to hear it just because, you truly understand and care for a person's ability to find the best version of themselves, right? And you do it in a way that is inviting, right? And of like, hey, how can I help you unlock yourself? Yeah. Right. Which I think is great. I think there's not enough of that. And so I definitely appreciate you allowing me to help you tell your story through the camera lens. So thanks, man. Appreciate those words. And I couldn't do it without you, bro. Yeah. When we came together on this project, it was serendipitous in many ways, and I couldn't be more grateful for it because with all the other things I do have going on, it's what I don't have the bandwidth, and in a lot of ways I don't have the skills for the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, dude, appreciate it more than you know, and right now couldn't be sharing this message without you, bro. Yeah. So I appreciate you being part of this team and helping me do just that. So yeah. All right, man. Until next time. Cool. We'll see you.